Okay, I'm going to try to be brief here. I produced a video the other day called Lunacy, and that was a response video to a pair of videos by Mr. Thrive and Survive. He produced this video called Eclipse Proves Science and NASA Wrong. And following that video, I had some questions and concerns, and I posted some of my questions in the comment section of that video. And either in response to my questions or possibly in response to somebody else's questions, he produced this part 2 video. Now, I didn't really feel that my questions were addressed at all in his part 2, and that's the reason I made the response. Now, since I made the response, something else has come to light that I wish I had been able to include in the original response video, and that's why I'm making this addendum. Now, let me begin by kind of going over very briefly the major concern that I addressed in the original response, and that has to do with the size of the shadow that the Earth casts on the Moon during a lunar eclipse. Mr. Thrive and Survive apparently feels that the shadow of the Earth is too small to accommodate the bite taken out of the Moon during the eclipse. And so what I did was I calculated the radius of the shadow that one would expect to be cast by the Earth at a lunar distance, and then I projected that that shadow on the Moon in Mr. Thrive and Survive's video. Now let me pause here and point out what Mr. Thrive and Survive did. And you can see here the crescent of the Moon during the early stages of a lunar eclipse. And this is the shadow that Mr. Thrive and Survive overlays on that crescent. You can see it's obscenely small. It's basically the same diameter as the diameter of the Moon itself. And then he points out these gaps on either side, here and here, between the shadow of the Earth and the crescent of the Moon, and he basically suggests from this that the lunar eclipse can't possibly be caused by the Earth passing between the Sun and the Moon. So again, I calculated the proper size of the shadow that one would expect to be cast at a lunar distance, and then I overlay that shadow. That's what I'm doing here on that crescent. And let me wait until I've moved that that shadow over. Okay, so there you can see that the proper size shadow, once one calculates it and overlays that on the crescent of the Moon, you can see it accommodates the bite taken out of the Moon very nicely, and that there are in fact no gaps. So while Mr. Thrive and Survive felt that there was something wrong with the size of the shadow, he was simply using an apparently arbitrarily sized and too small shadow to begin with. So at any rate, that was the nature of my original response video. So now let me go back and play a brief clip from Mr. Thrive and Survive's part 2.
Now here's the point. Here's NASA. Here's why NASA's busted. Look at the size of the Earth from the Moon, guys. Look at the size of the Earth from the Moon. Is that going to cause a humongously wide shadow on the Moon?
Mr. Thrive and Survive's part 2 seems to deal primarily with the size of the Earth as viewed in the lunar landscape of this famous Earthrise image taken by the Apollo 8 crew as they orbited. He feels that this Earth in this image is way too small and that it should be considerably larger. Now, I pointed out in my original response that in actual fact I have no way of telling what the size is of any object is above this barren landscape, because I have no objects of known size and distance to compare it with. So for example, suppose there was a lunar lander out here on this landscape somewhere visible in the photograph. Well, I know the dimensions of a lunar lander, or at least I can look those up. So that would be a structure that would be of known size. Now if I in addition knew the distance that that lander was from the camera, then I could determine what its angular diameter is on this landscape, and I could compare that diameter with the diameter of the Earth, and then say, well, okay, the Earth is too big or the Earth is too small, or something like that. But in the absence of a structure of known size and distance, I really can't say anything about an object in the sky above the moon here. Now, the irony in this is that the video that Mr. Thrive and Survive produced immediately following this part 2 is this video. It's called Flat Earth and More, Time for Your Request for Subjects. It has nothing, it's completely different subject matter. It has nothing to do with the subject matter I'm discussing, and I'm not going to discuss the subject matter of this video, but I just wanted to point out something kind of humorous about it. And that is that in this video, Mr. Thrive and Survive is using a blue screen that he uses fairly frequently as he narrates subject matter. And in this particular case, the image that he's elected to project onto this blue screen is, you can see a rather attractive looking landscape here with trees and such. And something else that's in this landscape is this itty bitty sun. And so I'm wondering, Mr. Thrive and Survive, did that not dawn on you when you were making this video that you were using such a small sun in the backdrop of this video, when in the video immediately prior to this one you were criticizing the what you thought was a small-sized Earth in the Earthrise photo? Now, the sun, as viewed from the Earth, has an angular diameter of about half a degree, and as viewed from the moon, the sun also has an angular diameter of about half a degree, because the moon and the Earth are obviously about the same distance from the sun, so they appear the same size. The sun appears the same size from either. Now, from the moon, the Earth appears bigger. It has an angular diameter of about 2 degrees, or a little bit less than 2 degrees. So if you were on the moon and looking at the Earth, it would appear about 4 times the size of the sun. Now, ironically, when one overlays Mr. Thrive and Survive's video here with the microscopic sun in the background with that Earthrise image, the Earth is obscenely large in comparison with the sun. And you know, while Mr. Thrive and Survive thought that the Earth was too small in that video, if anything, it's way too big. So I'm wondering, Mr. Thrive and Survive, did you make a boo-boo there or what?